Hello everyone, my name is Amina. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you're here because we have a lot to talk about. You know the title. We're talking about someone else being the main character in your life, whether you know it or it's subconscious. We're going to talk about it and see how this can be affecting your life. Also, something that I just want to disclaim before we start is that everything on this can be a spectrum. It could be something that you're just obsessing over at this moment and it's really all you can think about, but it's just a phase and it's gonna pass. I'm not really talking about stuff like that. I'm mostly talking about when it's starting to really affect your life and this person is the main character in your life and you are just the side character, and that's a problem. So we're gonna get into it, we're gonna talk about it, and yeah. So I mentioned this in my last video where I talked about social media, and if you haven't watched it, I'll link it down below. But I was talking about obsessing over celebrities, content creators, influencers, whatever. And if you're a fan of their work, that's one thing. But if you are obsessing as in on a daily basis, you're absorbing all their content, like binging YouTube videos, binging their Instagram, binging their TikTok, reading their blog, listening to their podcast, signing up for their Patreon. If you are absorbing a lot of their content on a daily basis, and if you are also one of those people who maybe they haven't posted in 12 hours and you're like, they haven't posted in a while. If you feel that hole in your life when you haven't absorbed their content in a short amount of time, then that's a big sign that this person is living rent-free in your mind and you are worrying way too much about them. I feel like it's normal now to be consuming all this content and being on social media for so long that we forget that it's actually not normal. And if you are obsessing over someone who doesn't even know you exist, I feel like that's a problem. And of course, social media, this is their job. They get paid pretty much for people being interested in them, but I feel like it should not be at your own expense. And if you are putting all this energy into somebody who doesn't care about you, and not even necessarily care about you because it's not even personal, they just don't even know who you are, you could be putting all that energy into yourself. And it pretty much just comes down to you feeling like their life is more interesting than yours. And if you already think that, then I feel like it's already a problem, just because people post less than 5% of their life on social media. And if you're comparing that less than 5% of their life that you know of, and then you and everything you know about yourself, which is 100%, if you're comparing that and you thinking that that is even comparable, then we're already in too deep, because we're assuming that we already know everything about their life when we just don't. And they could be going through a lot of stuff that you are glad you're not. In the grand scheme of things, you're probably having a better life than they are, and you don't even know it. But that's the illusion of social media. We think that we know what's going on in people's lives when we don't. And then you start comparing things that are literally not even comparable. Something too that I mentioned in my other video was how we look to influencers and celebrities to talk about certain issues like political, social injustices, issues going on in the world, to talk about these things and be the educators of these problems, when they're just beauty gurus or fashion bloggers and they have no qualifications to talk about this. Just because they have more followers than you does not mean that they are more qualified to talk about certain things. And the thing that's dangerous about that is that if we are obsessing over these people because maybe we like the way they look or their dress or we like their lifestyle, if we are obsessing over that and we're already getting influenced by those things and trying to implement them maybe in our own lives, then it's very easy to take what they say about actual problems and just take it as fact because we look up to them so much. And we might not even have an opinion on a certain issue, but if someone else that you admire speaks about it and you have done zero research about it, you'll just take it as fact and go with it and be like, you know what, I actually agree. And that stops you from thinking for yourself. And if you are already, copying their home decor, their style, their makeup, the phone cases that they have, if you're already copying and loving everything that this person is, and then on top of that, also copying their viewpoints on things that you didn't even do research on yourself, you just took it as fact because someone you said it, then you're literally trying to be a carbon copy at that point. And maybe that's I don't even think that's really an extreme, because that's just how much I feel like of a slippery slope it can be. And I feel like a lot of times too, it's just subconscious. Like it's not like you're actively trying. I mean, shoot, it's very possible that you could actually be trying to be like the person, but if you like something, you just like it. You can't help it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's even to the point where they're saying things about political issues that probably are right, probably are wrong, it doesn't really matter whether they're right or wrong. It matters that you're taking social media as your news source, and that's what's dangerous. And I guess if you were one of those people who actually do copy because you want to be like them, like, you'll never achieve that. You'll never be that person. You'll always be like, you're just taking someone, it's like you're taking someone else's identity because you just don't have your own. And that's probably, like, I guess, a hard pill to swallow. But, you know, if you don't even know who you are, then it's very easy to copy someone else you see online because you admire whatever that they are doing. You don't want your whole sense of self to be based on somebody else. We'll talk a little bit about that more in the advice section, but I just wanted to briefly mention that here. Another way that someone else can be the main character in your life, though, is just not even only about social media. It can be the people in your life. And one thing that I wanted to mention is about people pleasing. And, you know, like, people take advantage of other people who people please because they know that they will always be put first, and that they know that the other person is very selfless, that they will sacrifice their own time or whatever to help the other person. And, you know, that's well known. But also something that I feel like is important to talk about is how, if you have one of those friends who, you know, maybe they're not physically taking advantage of you in terms of maybe something materialistic or something, but they could be taking advantage of you for your kindness and your time. And if they're only using you, for example, to talk about themselves and pretty much just use you as a pair of ears and a shoulder to cry on, then your whole friendship is based around them, and your part in this relationship is to be the best friend, to be the side character in their life. And especially if this is someone that you're close to, then they obviously will take up a big part of your life. And do you even want that part of your life to be all about them? Like, even if you're not thinking about them nonstop and you're just living your best life, when it comes to your friendships, do you want your friendships to be only about them? Like, and you don't get a mutual friendship where what you do for them, they can also do for you. I've seen this happen before. I feel like I've been that person before, and maybe it comes down to, like, you know, even if you may know it, it's better than not losing them, or, you know, not having that best friend. But it's just, it's really just not worth it. Like, I feel like I would rather be alone and try to find new friends than be that person where they only want me because they want to use me, and they only need someone to vent to. They need that therapist, but then won't do the same thing for me. And, like, if you're in that situation, I would just say to cut them off and download Bumble BFF, because it's just not, it's not worth it. Another thing that I feel like this can show itself in is also family. And an example that I get so irritated about is when people try to make mothers feel like they are bad mothers for having a social life or trying to do things that don't revolve around their children. Even when you have children, your child should not be the main character in your life. And that doesn't mean that they're not a huge part of your life, and that doesn't mean that you don't love them. But, like, how can you give something that you lack? Like, if you are not taking care of yourself, and if you are not worrying and caring about yourself, then how can you give what a child needs? If you're not happy, how can you give happiness to a child? Everything that you, like, want to give to your child, you should also give to yourself. Like, you need to fill your cup before you fill someone else's cup. If you need a break, go take a break, and your baby will be fine staying at their grandparents' house for a few hours for you to take a break. And that is not a bad thing. It's mostly other people around you. It could be other family members, it could be other mothers, it can be just a lot of people that they just put a lot of mom guilt on moms. And, like, mothers already have their own mom guilt. Like, that's kind of already something that I feel like a lot of mothers experience without other people voicing their opinion. But that does not mean either that like you're not putting them first when it's important, and it doesn't mean that you love them less than the whole wide world. Like that doesn't mean, that's not what I'm saying. It just means you need to reciprocate that energy into yourself. And I also feel like this is also another reason why a lot of people, you know, when they're in a relationship, they maybe forget about their hobbies, they may forget about their old friends because they are now obsessed with this new person. And this is a good example of when I was talking about the spectrum. Like if you just start talking to someone, you have a big crush on them, it's not a big deal. If you like end up stopping your hobbies, if you spend more time with them than your friends in the beginning, it's whatever, like you have a crush. But if it becomes to the point where you aren't doing the things that used to make you happy because you are so focused on another person because you love them so much, then it becomes a problem. I'm not even trying to blame the other person. And all these examples, except for maybe the toxic friend one, I'm not blaming the other person who you're obsessed with, because it's your job to separate and be able to, you know, compartmentalize your life and be like, okay, I had a lot of time and energy in this area of my life. Now it's time to do it for myself. Now let me focus on me. And so quickly, I wanted to talk about some tips. The first one that I feel like is just general, and I'll probably talk about in another time, is just romanticizing your life. And, you know, if you feel like, you know, with the whole social media thing, that someone else's life is more exciting than your own, then, you know, it's not their fault, it's your fault. So like try to romanticize your life a little bit more. Stop absorbing so much content and start doing things to make you more excited about your own life than other people's, because that's why we need to romanticize things. When we watch movies, we see, you know, people doing the most basic things, like waking up in the morning, getting ready, going to a coffee shop, like all these things that are very like normal things, but for some reason watching it from a different point of view makes it more exciting. So if that's you, think about your life as a movie, like waking up and getting your coffee and brushing your teeth or whatever. Do those things that make you feel like you are that girl, because you have to act like that girl to be that girl. And I remember I heard that quote once and I was like, wow. That's also another video idea that I think would be great, but that's for another time. Also, another thing that I mentioned before was, you know, figure out who you are so you do not get easily swayed based on whatever the person you're currently obsessed with believes. Because if you aren't firm in who you are, firm in your beliefs, and you are just taking it from a complete stranger online who has a pretty aesthetic, then I don't feel like you're looking at the right places. And that's not to say you need to educate yourself on every single thing ever in the world, because you're gonna come across something you don't know. And I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to what other people have to say either, but I'm just saying do not take that as fact, and to do your own research and to figure out what you believe and be able to separate, like, okay, I like their aesthetic and their style and their home decor or whatever, and just because I really like everything that I'm visually seeing about them does not mean that also they are right in the things that they say about the world or whatever it is. And try to form your own opinion and stop putting people on social media. And it doesn't even have to be on social media, it can even be your own mother. Don't sell yourself short in thinking that they know more, and so I shouldn't even try to figure out more information about something. And I've done this before, and I'm sure we've all done this before, like where we've spoken about things and we might not know as much as we think, but we've heard someone say it, therefore we're like, I trust them, so I believe what they're saying is right, even if you didn't really do the research all yourself. And another tip I would say is just to be more selfish. And it's not even in a bad way. Like, there are moments to be selfish, there's moments to be selfless. Like, and if you are seeing that the balance isn't balancing, then maybe focus more about yourself and be able to say no. It's definitely easier said than done. I know a lot of people pleasers in my life, and I know it can be difficult, but there's no time like the present to start learning how to say no. I think that's all I had to say today. I hope this made sense, because a lot of the time I have like an idea in my head and I'm not really sure how it's going to be executed or how I'll be able to articulate what I'm saying out loud. So I really hope that I was able to talk about it in a kind of concise way, but I will get better at it. I have an Instagram, it's at amina.info, and if you are trying to find ways to implement inspiration into your own life and to create that dream life of yourself, then you should follow it because it'll give you a lot of inspiration. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you guys later with a new video. Bye!